Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. Today is the seventh day of February 2000 and sorry, I said the seventh day. Yeah, that's correct. Uh, 2026. Going to be reading again from the book from Zev ben Shimon Halevi, simply called Kabbalah and Exodus. This is going to be characterized by chapter 30 and 31. That's what it's saying here. And the title of the chapter is 35. It is chapter 35, Regeneration of Knowledge. So I hope everyone's doing well and trying to stay warm here. I hope everyone's trying to stay warm themselves. Change it to a better style. So the opening verses of Exodus chapter 30 lay out the specification, I should say, of the altar for incense to be set before the veil of the Holy of Holies in the sanctuary. It is to be made of shittim, shittim, wood, and overlaid with pure gold, including the horns and carrying poles. In it, Aaron is to burn incense that is, morning and evening. On it shall be put only authorized incense, and Aaron shall put blood on its horns once a year for atonement. Here we have again a mixture of esoteric instructions and priestcraft. The incense altar it should be noted, is almost an afterthought, quite separate from the initial directions on the sacred furniture and the tabernacle. Perhaps the priests were copying local customs or even adapting the burner so as to confront, I should say not confront, but to comfort to standard practices. The use of incense is not only to send a pleasing aroma up to the deity, but to put the priests and assembly into a heightened state. This is biochemical technique is a universal recognized method of raising the consciousness. Unfortunately, such drug-induced states without any inner training merely brings about a slight separation between the body and the psyche, and so precipitates a sense of distorted reality, which often brings forth not only strange visions, but any imbalance within the psyche. Under the regime of a skilled teacher, such aberrations can be safeguarded against by rigid discipline and codes of purity. Nevertheless, the practice of inhaling incense carries its hazards and may be regarded as an artificial way of ascension into the upper worlds. Indication of a interpolated text or omission of some critical lead-in passage comes in the 11th verse. Here the Israelites are to be registered, and the financial arrangements for a man's ransom to the Lord are specified. Now, while it is right to be beholden to the Creator for one life, the way the text presents it approaches extortion. Perhaps some priests drafted these verses, not without some self-interest. The text states how many shekels should be given as a contribution to the Lord, and how the rich and the poor have to pay the same. This appears to be contrary to natural or divine justice. The paragraph, I should say, finishes this rule by saying that the money shall be an atonement for their souls, as well as towards the upkeep of the tabernacle. Interesting. The reformers, the Catholic Church was doing that also. Anyway, we'll go on. Here is a highly suspect justification for supporting the clergy. It is the acquiring of wealth and power by playing upon the fear and guilt of the unlearned. That's true. That's what's happening right now in our own world. A severe comment, perhaps, but also a phenomenon commonly witnessed in all religious establishments throughout the world. The text at Exodus 30 verse 17, switches back to the making of the bronze laver. This once more reveals inconsistent editing on some scribe part. The washing of the hands and feet of the priests is described before they enter the tent of the presence. Quote, lest they die, end quote, from impurity. This might be a prod at the priesthood that they may be far from faultless. That's true. We have a lot of false teachings these days, folks. Exodus 30-22 then focuses right down to a list of materials for making the anointing oil and its applications to the tabernacle and each object and piece of furniture within it. This is symbolic of the dew, D-E-W, of heaven, gracing the place of meeting. After saying how Aaron and his sons must be anointed and that the oil must be used for nothing else, the scribe ends the chapter with a most detailed list of spices and how to make them into incense for the altar. Here, esoteric knowledge has turned into simple information. As if in reaction and contrast to the foregoing, the text again completely changes its character by introducing the name of a man called Bezalel. That's Bezalel. And actually, let's see if we can find some real quick here. Excuse me for a second. I had to look for work here on my table. So it's Bezalel. And yes, it's down to this must be the first time it was introduced because I've never seen this word. I probably have, but I've never remembered it. So Bezel from Hebrew lightning. This is from, see if I got the right one here. I don't want to say something wrong. No, that's not the right one. Here it is. Bezaleel. Hebrew in the shadow of God. Exodus 31 verses 2. God's imminence. Which means in the shadow of God, end quote. The son of Hur, H-U-R, who helped Moses in the battle with the Amalekites. This Israelite, the Lord explains to Moses, has been filled with the spirit of the divine. Quote, be Hokalam, U-V-I-T-E, B-U-R, I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry, which means simply in wisdom and understanding. I want to look at something else. The Amalekites. Who are these guys? Who's these guys that are always the enemy we always think they are, which is not the enemy. It's just a secret way of sharing something that most people will gloss right over and not see the importance of it. Okay, it does have the base root word here. See if I make sure I'm not saying anything wrong here. So this is so it's A-M-A-L. E-K, and then the I-T-E-S, so it's E-K. So this is going to say this is a group of them battle with the Amalekites. So this is saying, again, like I said, Hebrew that consumes all. This first started in Exodus chapter 17, verse 6. Or another word would be lust. So they're dealing with lust. This Israelite, the Lord explains to Moses, has been filled with the spirit of the divine. Behokamim, as I said that, in wisdom and understanding, UBE dot and knowledge. So I don't know what it's got. It should be dot and in knowledge. Here we observe the upper separah of the tree. Bezalel is to be the builder of the tabernacle, quote, in all matter of skills, end quote. His assistance is to be Aholeve, which means the quote, the tent of the father, the tent of his father, end quote. In Jewish folklore, he is not only called Bezalel, quote, the shadow of God, but Reah, Reaiah, which means to behold, for he was a man who was seen by God, end quote. He was also called Jahat, Jhath, the trembler, end quote, because he had experienced awe of the divine, and, quote, the one who unified, end quote, because his work brought about the connection between God and Israel. Sometimes Kabbalah is called the work of unification. And in this knowledge, Bezalel is seated. We are informed, even Moses at times, he knew, for example, the correct shape and specifications of the lamp standard without being told by Moses, who had forgotten them even though he had been shown the design twice on the mountain. According to tradition, Bezalel also knew how to combine the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet that went to bring about creation. Seen Kabbalastically, that is, this means that Bezalel was a man who had practice as well as theory of the created world. This is why he was given the task of carrying out the designs given to Moses. These fragments from the oral law gives us some insight concerning the elders of Israel who were privy to the teaching. They had a role quite separate from the priesthood and constituted the inner aspect of the spiritual line. On the tree of the community, they occupied the right force pillar of prophecy with Moses that complemented the left forum pillar of Aaron and the priesthood. And he's just explaining the pillar of mercy and the pillar of judgment, so to speak. And I can't remember the word, but it means, the left is one is pillar of mercy, and the other was to deal with anger towards you, so to speak. I've forgotten it. Just bear with me, please. Seeing the individual, Bezalel represents that aspect of a person which corresponds with the creative self. At the focus of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, the self is the individuality that reflects the creator, operating like most artists. Bezalel knows what to do intuitively as he receives the grace descending from knowledge. Thus, the separah of beauty can construct the tabernacle within the being of the person. This unification of the worlds in the self slowly produces sacred object after sacred object until the sanctuary and its court is realized above and below. In time, the inner tabernacle becomes the place of meeting between the divine and man. Here begins at the individual level the initiative stage of the process whereby I and thou face each other and God begins to behold him. Begins to behold God. The name Bezalel, which is also interpreted as, quote, beholding the deity if only in the shadow, end quote, reflects this principle. So that's the end of chapter 35 tonight. So we'll stop here at this point. This is Kabbalah and Exodus chapter 30 to 31 by Zeb ben Shimon Halevi. Thank you for your attention. Have a good evening. Take care.